Hey guys, what's up? This is MtgGalaxy here, and really quick before this video starts, be sure to check out my Twitter at twitter.com/MtgGalaxyTRS. Enjoy the video, and today we are doing day 2 of the spoilers for Commander 2018. Some of our first spoilers we got are some sweet reprints. We got stuff like Chaos Warp, we got Scoop Mob, we've got the new, not really new, but Ruinous Path from Battle for Zendikar, the fixed Hero's Downfall, I guess, with kind of an upside. We also have Rampaging Baloths, I'm guessing for the new Jund Landfall deck. And we have a couple others that I'm going to share with you pretty soon. Some of the sweet reprints we have are Eidolon of Blossoms, I'm guessing for the Bant Enchantments list, and Avenger of Zendikar, I'm guessing for the Jund Lands Matter list. Our first spoiler today is Loyal Guardian. 4 colorless and a green for a 4/4 Rhino with Trample. But it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is a pretty sweet card, especially for a lot of like +1/+1 based commanders like Ravos and Rayhan, for example, or just Rayhan or anything like that. It slots into a lot of green lists that have +1/+1 shenanigans, and I think it's a pretty good card for some of those lists. The next card we have is Nesting Dragon, 3 colorless and 2 red for a 5/4 dragon with flying and landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/2 red dragon egg token with Defender, and when it dies, create a 2/2 red dragon with flying and fire breathing, or just paying a red to give +1/+0 until end of turn. This is a pretty good creature for the Jund Lands Matters deck. You're going to be dropping a ton of lands, playing some lands from your graveyard, and getting a bunch of eggs that when they die, you get a nice little fire breathing Drake to boot. Pretty good card for any Jund land deck. The next card we have is Chain Reaction, 2 colorless and 2 red for a sorcery. Chain Reaction deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. This is a pretty good substitute if you're too cheap to afford Blasphemous Act. It's a pretty good, not really reprint, but it's a good budget substitution for anything like that. Like, it won't kill many creatures if you don't have that many on the battlefield, but if the board is flooded, it could potentially be a really good board wipe for 4 mana in red. Pretty good, slots into a lot of decks. Up next, we have Emissary of Grudges, 5 colorless and a red for a 6/5 creature effort with flying and haste. When he enters the battlefield, secretly choose an opponent. You can reveal the player you chose to choose new targets for target spell or ability if it's controlled by the chosen player and it targets you or a permanent you control. Activate this ability only once. This is a pretty interesting and fun card. Of course, you don't get to use it that many times, and its effect is pretty limited. It won't be that great for a lot of decks, but if you are trying to build a fun deck and there's a lot of like counterspell shenanigans in the meta, or just like removal is heavy control decks, then this will be a pretty good card against those matchups. The next card we have is Windgrace's Judgement, 3 colorless and 1 Golgari, or a green and a black, for an instant. For any number of opponents, destroy target non-land permanent that opponent controls. This is a very versatile removal spell. It kills anything that's not a land, which doesn't really matter that much. And if you're allied with somebody, you cannot destroy any permanents that they control. That's pretty versatile. Or you could just get a sick 3-for-1 if you're not allied with anybody and you're playing arch enemy or whatever. Up next is Reality Scramble, 2 colorless and 2 red for sorcery. It reads, put target permanent you own on the bottom of target library. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card that shares a card type with that permanent. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. It also has Retrace, so you can cast it from your discard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. I'm guessing that this is going to be good in the Jund Lands list. It's pretty good just being able to bottom something that you don't need in order to reveal cards from the top of your library until you find something you do. Plus, 4 mana is pretty aggressively costed, and I think this will be a fun card for most players. Next, we have Blood Tracker, 3 colorless and a black for a 2/2 Vampire Wizard with flying. And you can pay a black and pay 2 life to put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tracker. When it leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. This is a pretty good card, and it will fit into most aforementioned +1/+1 counter lists like Ravos and Rayhan or anything like that. It's also a pretty good card if you just want to pay some life, as well as you have a lot of black mana to spare, for example if you have Cryptghast or something of the like. It'll slot into a lot of decks, and it's a pretty versatile card draw engine for a color that doesn't have most card draw. The only other options that it has that are this efficient are stuff like Read the Bones and, I don't know, other stuff. If you have a pretty good sack outlet as well, and you can sack it at any time, you could sack it in response to something to find like a counter spell if you're in blue. Pretty good card. Up next we have Loyal Subordinate. 2 colorless and a black for a 3/1 zombie with menace. And it has the Lieutenant ability. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3 life. So this is the cycle that we're getting. It's creatures with a Lieutenant ability that give you a buff or your opponent a negative if you have your commander out. It's a pretty cool cycle, but I don't know if many decks are going to want it because there's more impactful things they could do on the turns where they can play these. Next up, we have Fury Storm. 2 colorless and 2 red for an instant. When you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the commands in this game. You may choose new targets for the copies. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this is kind of like the blue card we talked about earlier, Echo Storm. This seems to be a cycle as well that lets you copy it for as many times as you've cast your commander this game, and you get to copy something that's being cast. It's pretty good, but I mean, I don't know how many times you'll actually want to pay 4 mana to copy something once, twice, maybe 3 times. Maybe it'll go into some decks like Mizzix or Brawl, but not many decks after that. It's a pretty specialty card if I've ever seen one. The next one is Whip-Tongue Hydra. 5 colorless and a green for a 4/4 Lizard Hydra with Reach. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying. Not all creatures your opponents control, just all creatures in general, so yours as well. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature destroyed this way. This is a pretty cool anti-flyers card. Like if your opponent's playing like a Dragon Lord or a Prosh or something like that, you can just get it destroyed and then get a pretty big Hydra to boot. Not a bad card, but not one that's going to slot into a lot of decks. It's also pretty, the resemblance to Bane of Progress is pretty cool as well. Alright guys, the next one is Gyrus, Walker of Corpses. This is the Command Zone's preview card. It's X and adjust for a 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the mana that was spent to cast it. Whenever it attacks, you may exile a target creature card with lesser power from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature that's tapped and attacking. Exile that token at the end of combat. This is a pretty cool card, and it's also pretty cool that if you don't spend any mana on X, it still comes in as a 3/3, which also means it scales from command attacks. And there's a lot of cool interactions. You can check out the Command Zones podcast for more information on the interactions, like Sundial of the Infinite and Yavimaya Elder. But this is a pretty cool card that I think people are going to be building around. Our next one is Thatnus the Weaver. 6 mana or 3 colorless and a Jund for a 5/5 legendary creature spider with vigilance and reach. All creatures must attack each combat Fable, and whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker in control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thatnus the Weaver. This is a pretty good card, and also if you want to build this deck, you'll jam it filled to the brim with a bunch of big creatures. For example, the Hydra we just saw, a bunch of the Hydras and stuff like that. Pretty good card. I don't know if it's fit to be a commander, but it'll definitely go in the 99 of a lot of Jund lists. Our second to last card is called Crash of the Rhino Beetles. 4 colorless and a green for a 5/5 insect with trample. And it gets +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. This is a pretty decent card in the Jund lands deck, but it's not that great anywhere else. Normally you'll want to try to win the game before you get to 10 lands, but if you're playing pretty casual and it gets grindy, this can be fine. Our final spoiler for today is Lord Windgrace. 2 colorless and a Jund for legendary planeswalker Windgrace that starts off with 5 loyalty. He has 3 abilities. First one, +2, discard a card, then draw a card. If a land card was discarded this way, draw an additional card. -3, return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And as -11, destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents. Create 6 2/2 Green Cat Warrior tokens with Forest Walk. And he can be your commander. This is a pretty good commander for the Jund lands deck, but I don't really know if he wants to slot in anywhere else. He's pretty specified. He's a pretty specialist commander that pretty much just goes into Jund lands, and I don't think he'll want to be part of your 99. Pretty good commander though, seems fun to build around. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today. Be sure to check out my sponsor, all the you subscribers. I don't have a sponsor, so if you subscribe, that's the best you can do for me. Be sure to subscribe, leave a like, a comment down below, and comment on what you want to see next. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys all in the next video.